I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and here today with me is Lynette Zang, Chief Market Analyst at ITM Trading. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. It's always really good to catch up with you.
Absolutely.
Very good. And so we last spoke a year ago at this same conference. We're here at VRIC in Vancouver. And the theme of your presentation this time around is currency life cycles. I thought that was a great place to start because we also spoke about that in that last conversation we had. So for me, I really liked that the title of the talk directly asks, where are we? Because I think many people understand we're going through this de-dollarization process, but maybe they don't know how far we've come and how far there still is to go. So if you could touch on that.
Well, first I'd like to say that it's not just the dollar. It's every single fiat government-based money on the planet. This is the end of that trend cycle. And yes, we've been moving in that direction for a very long time, but I think that what we've seen last March and April with the breakdown in the banking system and the major volatility in the 10-year Treasury, that even though we've been looking at the liquidity issues in the Treasury market since 2015, they've gotten a whole lot worse. I mean, major traders, this is supposed to be the foundation of the global market, and major traders have to sell or buy treasuries in itty-bitty pieces in order to not create this whipsaw. So where we are right now, we have also, since the last time we spoke, look at what's happened with interest rates. And so when you have a debt-based system and walls of debt that need to be reset, and you've got interest rates up substantially from where they were when this debt was taken out, which was in zero interest rate policy, what you've got is a tectonic shift. And I think that we could start to feel the problems with it as early as this spring, moving into the summer, because there are so many different programs, government-based programs on treasuries, and the jury rigging of the interest rate benchmarks. I mean, there's just a big laundry list. So, quite honestly, I can't guarantee, because that's certainly not something that's within my power, but I could easily see the central bank's inability. I can see a crisis coming up as early as this spring, moving into this summer, and that's what they need to justify that shift. So, yeah, we're at the very end.
Very, very good overview of where we're at right now. And it does sound, I'm getting from you and from other people at this conference that we're heading into a year of a lot of uncertainty.
Oh,
yeah. And I'm wondering, okay, so I like to always relate back to what can we know? What can we do today? So for investors, what can we know about 2024 moving forward? We've got the Fed, we've got inflation, we've got this recession question going on. Is there anything we can know with some certainty?
Yes, actually, what you can know with absolute certainty is that good money, so physical gold, physical silver in your possession, is the single safest thing that you can do to protect yourself from all of those issues, plus so many more. And when you take a look at what the global central banks are doing, and the fact that they've bought more gold than they ever have in history, should also tell you that they are preparing for the very end of the system. So, I mean, that's really what you can do. Plus, you want to be as independent and self-sufficient as possible, because if you are fully dependent upon the fiat money system, that government-based system, and the system goes down, what do? You've got to do whatever they tell you. And we're going into a full control, really like a feudal system, where you just have a few people that own everything and everybody else that rents. And so what do you need to do? Food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. And I would honestly say, the gold and the silver are the foundation of your wealth. So you've got to have that. But, in 2008, and we spoke about this, in 2008, I knew that the system died. And that's when I built my urban farm and started executing the rest of my mantra. And so, knowing that it's at the end, I had the luxury of time, right? I did that in 2010. That's 13 years that I've been working on this. We don't have that luxury of time anymore. And so what that really brings to the fore was the other part of my discussion today, which is community. And I think that we really need to tackle that from two areas. One would be local, so that you can ensure that you have food and your water and all of that. So your local farmers, your dairy farmers, your food, your vegetable farmers, etc. Get to know them. Maybe even volunteer so that they know who you are. Because should another event like we experienced in 2020, March and April, should that occur again and you can't get food, if you know your local farmer, you are more likely to be able to eat, right? So the local community is critically important. But in order to combat what these central bankers and governments have in mind for us, that feudal system, we have to come together in a global community. And I've realized since the last time that we spoke that that's really what I need to talk about a lot. Because we vote with our wallets. So if you keep all of your wealth inside of their fiat money system and that crashes, what choices do you have? But if you can create an environment where you are independent and self-sufficient, you have those choices. And if on a global basis, there are more of us than there are of them, and wow, what if we all came together and positioned ourselves so that when they want to shove those CBDCs down our throats, we can say, nope, we got good money. Nope, this is not a problem. And we have all of those other needs met as well. So coming together in a global community to buy gold and silver and say, nope, we are not accepting your fiat money, and we are certainly not accepting your full control and full surveillance money. That's what we can do. And I have a lot of hope. I mean, that's really what we have to do as quickly as possible.
Really interesting, I think, to hear those thoughts on community. And I agree it's so important. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that, because we're in a world where we're so connected, it seems, and yet, so we're here in Vancouver, this is where I live, and one thing I hear all the time, especially from younger people, is it's so hard to make connections. Mm-hmm. So I wondered if you could speak a little bit more about that and how people can actually put themselves out there, make those connections that they're going to need to have.
Mm-hmm. There are a number of different ways that you can do it. One of the ways is meetups. What are you interested in? And it's pretty easy in any local community to find different pockets of those same people. In fact, here at the show, we met two women that are building a local community actually around the beauty industry, right? So it doesn't really matter what you're interested in. There are going to be groups of people that are also interested in that. If you are about learning how to, or putting yourself in a position where you can feed yourself, there are community gardens. And in fact, we have in our community, so in my company, which is definitely a community, we have two people that actually know how to build those local communities much better than I do. So if you do a search, Lynette Zang, then we've got some things that are in the works that will help you not just see what we're doing, but see how to do it in your local community.
Okay, very, very useful to know about that. And thank you for going over that. And I'm going to go back to gold. So
yes,
of course, we know that you value gold very highly. And I always hear that when we get to that 2000 level that we're at right now, that's when more people will get interested. So, but it doesn't seem like we're quite there yet. So I'm curious to know what you're seeing as we move toward these circumstances you're describing. Is that interest going to be coming?
Oh, that interest is actually already here. And while it's hard to see it in the spot contract market, because they can create as much gold as they want to, that does not nor ever need to exist, in the physical market, we are having major breakouts, whether it's especially at the upper end of it, where an ounce of gold, somebody might spend, $15 million on an ounce of gold, which is not something that I personally do, but I want to be in that category because those are the people that get to write the laws and the rules, and it's harder to confiscate should they make the choice to do an overt confiscation, right? So we are actually in the physical realm already seeing that. In the paper realm, what we are seeing is like a quadruple top where spot gold will go up, hit a point, drop down, okay? But we're also seeing a breakout there. It's having a lot more challenges because all they have to do is create more gold. And all of a sudden the market goes, oh, look at how much more gold there is. And so that is a way of confiscation because what it's doing is hiding the truth. But demand-supply dynamics are such that, and especially in silver, physical silver as well, the supply-demand, is completely cattywampus, right? And it doesn't make any logical sense at all. But why? Because they can create a whole lot of gold and silver that doesn't exist. Now, one thing that gives me a lot of indication of where we are in that is, and I don't know if we have that in Canada, Costco, which is a big warehouse, right? And what have they been doing? They've been selling little 1 ounce gold bars, and it's a limit of 2, but as soon as they post it, boom, they're out the door. So what I'm seeing is that the public absolutely everybody kind of feels that something's wrong, and we're being told, oh, look at this inflation, it's under control. Well, it's not really. In certain areas, maybe the rate of inflation is calming down a little bit, but that, I believe, is going to be shifting, and it's already started to shift around the world. So as far as gold and silver is concerned, when I see the public buying the 1 ounce little bars from Costco as quickly as they can list them on the website, that gives me a lot of hope and is an indication that, people are waking up.
Okay, very good point on Costco. Important not to forget that. So, and because you mentioned confiscation, so I know that we talked about this in our previous conversation, but we had a viewer write in with a question about that, and I'll read you the question.
Okay.
And it's, could you discuss why some people like Lynette make it a priority to collect the pre-1933 coins? Is there really a danger of confiscation? So this is what people are wondering.
I'll tell you what, I always look at everything and I say, what if I'm right and what if I'm wrong? The reason why I personally believe so much in the pre-33 collectible coins is because of my Uncle Al, who was a major antique dealer and back east in New York. And one day my parents and I were at his house and he said, come here, I want to show you something. And he had 2 tall floor safes and he opened up those safes and you couldn't fit even 1 more ounce of gold in there. They were stacked. Now, I was 10 years old, and so I didn't really understand it, but that was 1965. And it was illegal at that time to hold more than 5 ounces of gold in any other form than the way that he was holding that. So, we'll go back to the ultra rarities where someone might spend $15 million on a coin. You don't have to do that. But I think that it's so critically important for everybody to understand what the true value of any asset or any instrument is, because ultimately that's where it's going to go, right? So since they can create and manipulate the price of gold, and we see global central bankers buying more gold than ever, and we see the physical market break out in the higher level coins as well as the lower level coins, I can tell you that without any doubt in my mind, the true value of an ounce of gold right now is somewhere north of $15,000. So, what happens is when the demand for the physical market goes up, then the premiums go up. And then what do people say? Oh, I don't want to pay those premiums, right? But if you don't pay $15,000 for a coin, and the more debt they grow, the higher that number goes, then it's a bargain. So, and if you're looking at stocks or bonds and look at the stock market's going up, oh, look at this, aren't I doing well? But if the purchasing power value of the currency is going down, and it's going to zero, then what do you have? A bunch of paper like the Zimbabwean dollar that you can't do anything with. You can't convert it into any goods or any services. So whether or not they do an overt confiscation is really the question, because they've been doing a covert confiscation, the way they tax it, the way they make it look so to keep you away from it. That's a covert confiscation. And desperate governments do desperate things. I mean, it really is that simple. And we've seen mine nationalization, and especially in Canada, with so much mining that's going on. And yes, the miners know if they're in an emerging market that the governments can nationalize, they can do surcharges and taxes and all different things. But guess what? They're doing the same thing here in Canada. So even, people need to understand that confiscation by any other name is still confiscation. So I personally am more comfortable. I don't spend over fundamental value for any coin. Well, I might for legacy gold, right? Which is gold that I'm going to pass down through generations. But other than that, and there's all different kinds of gold that I use depending upon what I intend to do with it. Other than that, I never go above fundamental value. And so it doesn't really, the premiums don't matter. None of that matters because I know I'm getting a bargain.
Okay, I think that's a really helpful answer for everybody out there who is wondering about that. And I know we've talked a little bit about silver today, and I remember, of course, you value it for its borrowability. I was going to bring it up because I know you'll be on the silver forecast panel. I think that's later today. And people get so frustrated about silver and think about the price. And just going back to what you said about bargains, right? So maybe your thoughts on silver.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. The supply-demand dynamics are even probably a little bit more cattywampus in silver than they are in gold, because silver has two functions, right? It is a monetary metal. It's the secondary monetary metal, but it's also an industrial metal. And again, those spot contracts, it's cheap. It doesn't cost barely anything to create however much silver they want to create. So yes, I mean, the supply-demand dynamics really tell you everything. You can see it in the gold with the central banks, but you can see it, I mean, before I left to come here, the spot market was at $22. I mean, that's a joke. That is absolutely a huge joke. But don't they use those spot markets to create that frustration? It is not Wall Street that is going to tell you the true value of anything. That is pure speculation, and it's designed to keep you in the system and make it easier to rob you. So don't believe the lies. Don't believe them. And everybody, not everybody can afford gold. They should. There's fractional ways, so you really do need both. And gold is the primary currency metal, and that's how they reset a currency, is they take this fiat money that has no intrinsic value and they reset it against gold money that is all intrinsic value. But when you're talking about silver as the secondary metal, I mean, we're going into, in my opinion, and also based on the technicals that I'm seeing, because this is something else that's happened since the last time we spoke, I always pay attention to monetary velocity. That's the speed at which money changes hands. And it can indicate whether or not an economy is really stimulated. And I had been saying that because it peaked in 1997. And so that was really the last time that taking on more debt was actually stimulating an economy. And it's been dropping off a cliff ever since. So what we've seen just recently is that it is moving up in a very pervasive way. And so for me, when I see that, because I pay close attention to it, I believe that the hyperinflation has already begun. It may not be obvious to everybody because they're going to spin it this way and they're going to spin it that way, but just go on the Federal Reserve, FRED, go on that website and put in monetary velocity. And you will see that it is spiking in a pervasive way. And that's like an early warning sign. So it goes back to, where are we in this cycle? It wasn't spiking when you and I last spoke. Now it is spiking in a pervasive way. So that's where we are. Don't believe the lies. Their job is to lie to you and keep you in the system. Don't believe them.
Very important reminders. And, just as we're wrapping up here, one point you made, not everybody can afford gold, right? And especially with inflation at such high levels right now, you hear about so many people who live paycheck to paycheck. They can't save much. Maybe they can't save anything right now. They're in debt. I wonder if you have advice for people in that situation. How do they prepare?
Well, you know what? Gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base, right? And so I've accumulated quite a bit of particularly silver, because sterling silver is 92.5% pure, right? So it's not as easy today as it used to be, but I used to go to yard sales and pick it up for nothing because people go, I don't want to polish this. I'll polish it, right? And so you can, I found it in like secondhand stores because people just don't understand. Mexican silver is also 92.5% pure. So the way that somebody in those circumstances can accumulate, I've also had clients that will go to the bank and buy a roll of dimes or quarters or something like that. They'll sift through them. If you look and you see copper in the middle, right, then it's clad. So you look for pre-1964 dimes, quarters, half dollars. And I've had people that will go to the bank, buy a roll of dimes, whatever, go home, go through them, pull out the silver ones, and maybe you're going to get 1, 2, or 5 or nothing, right? But then they roll it back up and they take it back to the bank and they exchange it for another one. So you're paying a dime for something that if you had to buy, if you were buying them from a dealer or something like that, you'd probably be paying, I don't know because I haven't checked lately, but maybe, $22 for it or something like that. So, or $2, something like that. But that's another way for people to be able to accumulate that don't have a lot of money, is just go keep changing it out at the bank and you'll get what you get. But, Aunt Bessie's silverware, salt and pepper shakers, doesn't matter if they're bent or broken or tarnished, who cares? Doesn't matter. It's monetary at its base. So yeah, that is a great way.
Yeah, I love this answer, and I like speaking with you because you always make me feel like maybe it's hard, but we can
do this.
Yeah. So yeah.
Can I also say this? That's also the importance of community, right? If you can get associated and develop a community, okay, maybe I bring in the gold, and maybe you can lay irrigation and work in the gardens, and maybe somebody else can do plumbing and build things and all of that. So I think that's why, for me, a little bit different, because yes, gold and silver is the foundation of your wealth, but community is arguably the most important piece in the mantra because of where we are in this trend cycle. So yeah, it's tough out there. Come together and support each other.
Okay, I think that's a wonderful note to end on. So thank you so much for coming on to talk about gold and silver, as well as all the other topics that we discussed. Really great to hear from you.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. I really do. Thank you.
Okay, and once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and this is Lynette Zang. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe to our channel. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a comment below. We'll see you next time.